the link to the webinar, and let me show you the structure. For some people who might be new potentially, that is going from top to the bottom. That's today. Today is September 29. And here we have the plan of what we're going to do. We'll do that and maybe something else. And going down, that's all about history now. It took me a little time to rearrange. It was sorted the other way. But now I'm doing it right. And what we're going to cover is some news. Of course, we cannot cover all, but this I found interesting for me personally. And we will do a practice. Let's emphasize that fact that we are going to do a practice. So that's your link. That's the only thing that you need. All right, let us start. So for me, an interesting theme was Anthropic. Anthropic, just you might be on Anthropic all this time, but for me it was a new thing, and somehow that all concentrated this week. So number one is that there is a podcast, right? Podcast here. Now, no, and that's not it. It's Dario Amodei. And that, according to the podcast, it is the first. He is trying to have a low profile. But what I got out of that, of course, everybody heard about the $4 billion investment, but from Amazon to Anthropic. And Dario Amodei is the CEO of Anthropic. And that is where he talks about, his philosophy. But okay, I didn't find anything interesting in the philosophy. He keeps low profile there also. What I found interesting is that he is out of Google and then he is out of OpenAI, out of that company. So that makes a pretty good pedigree. And that is the first podcast. I also noticed something else. So you can listen to it. I gave you the link here. I also noticed an announcement that came out today. That was from Amazon. Well, I just deleted that. I think I need it. So let's go there. I had it here in my email and just deleted that. So let's find it. And I apologize for this, but yes, here it is. Anthropic and Claude are available on Amazon. So let's copy that. Let us put it on our webinar so that it's more or less complete. And actually, I had it there already. I thought the announcement should come from Amazon, but it came from Anthropic. So let's open it. Here you are. The announcement says that now you can have it from Amazon. It's the same Claude. And you can get it from Amazon. The purpose is that now you can integrate it into all other things, and you can also use it from Amazon Lambda. Okay. Using popular Lambda functions. So now you have a question. Question number one, I should investigate this model. Question number two, should I use it from Amazon or should I use it from Anthropic itself? So investigation the model is my task for this week, because one of the guys I'm working with, he said that he heard good things about Anthropic, and being that we're doing a practical medical related AI, So that makes sense to listen to him. But also, because it's time to go into other models, at least for me personally. Now, the question is, should I use it from Amazon? I use Amazon for most of my development needs, but I had my experience. I had the experience of how do you scale something, and I had two ways. And the way number one was exactly that, Lambda. This is where I learned how exactly you work with Lambda. And I must say that it was overcomplicated to me. If I could show you that, it's probably in the Python environment. So it's something like that, PyCharm. Okay, this is PyCharm. And I need to open it. On the case, it will take me just a little time, but then it's worth it for all the, let's say, suffering that I went through. It's worth it. Okay, I'm opening that. And I had the same functionality, the AI functionality that I have here, deployed either through Fast API or through Lambda, and it's open here on Lambda. So that's what I had to do. For each individual function, I had a package sh. Package sh, let's look at it, would combine all of the environment, and each function needed a different environment. There was no point to collect a lot of environment if it was just a little. And so what I went through is I call a directory the same name as it will be the Lambda function. That's where I have my code with the requirements, and package combines them. Well, I would say that was a quite roundabout way. It worked. I put it in there, but I found it was extremely long process. Any error, and you have to go through that again. So I gave up on that. I gave up. We were looking at here you are. We were looking at should you use Lambda, and I realized that Lambda is a very specific architecture. Okay, it is not payable all the time that you're not using it. It's not like a virtual machine. So it has its own appeal, but for development, okay, when you're figuring out what to do in your AI and making mistakes necessarily and experimenting, I would say Lambda is not the place. So the real place that we used was Beanstalk. Beanstalk. So we package our stuff as Fast API, which is already secure, has everything, and then we put it on Beanstalk so that it's scaling automatically. Now, when it is not used, you still pay for at least the smallest virtual machine, all right? But that's the cost of being in the development environment. So that was my experience. That's what I thought about Lambda. And whether I'm even going to use Anthropic from Amazon or going directly, that I found out by just figuring out, can I develop on top, develop or build on Anthropic LLM. So if that's what you want to do, if you want to build an Anthropic LLM, then you need to skip all of that stuff, go to their home, and go directly. Just as with ChatGPT, I'm using their stuff directly and not through Microsoft, because for Microsoft, that's it's up to them, and they advertise we have it secure and integrated with Azure. With Amazon is the same thing. They advertise that oh guys, we have it secure and it's integrated with Amazon. So for my personal needs, I am going to do, and I will report the results next week directly on Anthropic. Now, with all this talk, I have comments, and that's very nice. Okay, let's see what the comments say. Good morning, they say. Hello, good morning, and I'm saying the same thing. Okay, John was using Claude, and it is at least interesting. Lawrence says, gets updated from Anthropic, yes, faster than the integration, $4 billion investment, yes. Amazon needs to play the big game, there's a big boys, right? And those startups, they require cloud ecosystem, any cloud ecosystem. Okay, thank you very much. That is what I wanted to show. So here we are. We wanted to look at Anthropic as something that makes news, and this is the link. Now, the next step. In my case, the next step, I'm working on improving the quality. You remember that I have a very specific thing that I'm working on. Okay, it's an application for lawyers. It's called Caseify, and I'll show you why it is an application for lawyers and why it's called Caseify. So it allows them to put all their cases in one place. So here's the system. Now, in civil litigation, they already have tools, but in criminal litigation, it's a whole different story. I'm not going into why not, but that is the need. Okay, so okay, they put their files, and with the nice things for them, like if it is a video, then we will transcode it and transcribe it so that instead of a video, now they have a complete record of what happened. If it is a PDF, we will OCR it so that you can see it. But now the AI, Caseify, it's preview so far because a few things are missing. So I can ask questions like, what are the circumstances of the case? Now, what happens right now is that I expect that the index has already been built. It tells me here that it took 6 files and put them into an index. What index are we talking about? I'm using a syntactic search engine, specifically Pinecone, and I prepare these 6 documents that have to do with this case, and only these are being prepared right now with OCR and with conversion to text, and then they go into this index. Now, why does it take so long? I don't know, but that is exactly what I'm working on. It should be faster, and it should be better quality. For example, I don't know why it doesn't answer, but imagine that it answers. It knows all the circumstances. It knows magically what the police report said. It knows that the gun was here or it was there. Knows all of that, but it needs a few things. It needs memory. When you talk to ChatGPT, it remembers what you talked about. You go to ChatGPT. Let's go to ChatGPT. And to illustrate this, I will go straight into previous discussion. Okay, whatever discussion was, here it could not possibly come up with a reasonable answer unless it knows what we talked about. Okay, that's memory. To implement this, you need to implement a special layer of your conversation, because here you see it remembers what I talked about, but the API, it doesn't. So therefore, you simply store what you talked about in your application. Let's go back here. We've proven the fact that it has memory, and it, for some reason, doesn't work today. And we don't have, so that's one of the things, but then lots of fine tuning, and that's exactly where the value of AI implementation comes. Anybody can open ChatGPT and talk to it, but not everybody can know exactly the documents in this case. That's one thing. And not everybody can convert them to text. That's another thing. And not for everybody it sleeps, as you can see. That's a third thing. But in any case, not everybody can say, well, what does the case law say? And it will say, well, give me the case law for this case. That's an important thing, and that's what I'm going to implement, well, more or less this week, next week. And that's when this Caseify AI will be Caseify AI, and preview will go away. So to implement this, I'll teach you how to do it. Now, let me see a quick chat. Yes, that's about Anthropic. Thank you. Right. So to implement it, you obviously need a certain complication, not just ask ChatGPT questions, even though you give it all the right documents and all the right context. You need more than that. And what more do you need? You need to ask a few questions. For example, the user asks a question about case law. So you should know that if there's a question about the case law and not about that particular case, well, you cannot know it, right? Because that requires understanding of the question, but ChatGPT does. So the first thing that you will do is ask ChatGPT, hey, what's the question about? Is it about that specific case, or is it about the case law? Then, based on that, and that user doesn't say, you process the user's question like that. So you ask it of ChatGPT first, classify the question, and then accordingly ask the question directed to your case law repository or directed to that particular case repository. How do you do it? Well, I prepared it for you. If we go back, we go back here, then it's here. That's this lab. And I am planning to run this lab right here locally. If you want to run it on your own, then you simply download it like this. That here will download the lab, and you will get a file. That file you will find in the download folder. On the Mac, it is here. Downloads. That will be here, but it will not run just by itself. So in my case, what you would have to upload it into Colab, for example. In my case, I will open a terminal. Okay, I'm already there, but not in the right place. So I'm going to the directory where it is, Skya, Caseify, and then I need to go to, oh, I was in the right place, I'm sorry. That is part of the project, yes, OpenAI. And I also need to be with the OpenAI environment. So I'm saying Conda, activate OpenAI. So now it has the right libraries. With that, I can start Jupyter Lab. And I'm going to run that lab locally here as soon as it opens. Now, before I do this, I want to see what are the chats. Okay. Fred is asking, are there any relationship between Anthropic and ChatGPT? I think they're completely separate by now. The relationship was that the CEO of Anthropic was at some point an employee of ChatGPT. I think that's the most. But that was a tight group. They started in 2015. I can only imagine what kind of sparks were flying there. And it's from the same place. It is interesting that you look at the pedigree and where does the guy come from. And the amazing thing is today, Google is left behind, not completely behind. Of course, we all remember they have their own LLM. And in fact, one of the courses that I will mention today deals with, can I use that LLM, Google LLM? And the topic that they suggest is pair programming. So maybe not today exactly, but we will investigate the Google. That's their way. They had a very bad experience regionally when they deployed their models, and they got pretty bad publicity. The price of the stock dropped, and it was amazing. The perennial leader was left behind. So I guess they learned to be humble, and then introducing their model behind everybody else. But at least Anthropic and OpenAI are the two leaders. That is, I think, everybody agree. Okay, back to where we were. I wanted to show you the chain in Langchain. So let's first do it. I remember we were talking about other things we wanted to investigate, but first let us do this. That is out of the Langchain course. What is the Langchain? Let me show you Langchain. Okay, Langchain is a San Francisco startup. They are all kind of San Francisco startups. And it's a way to use ChatGPT or any other model. But all examples that I have seen are using ChatGPT and do more than just ask a question. Maybe ask a second question, and that means memory. Maybe process in a few steps. For example, the one that I mentioned. First, find out what's the question about without telling the user you're doing this, and then process the question in the appropriate way. That seems to be the popular architecture, and that seems to be the current standard. Now, it seems you're limiting your approach because you would think that, okay, I have the big model, I'll teach it more, and then it will know more. That is not how it's working. The approach that I see, and that's the one that I'm using, is where you're processing all the documents and sending it not to the model, but to the syntactic search engine in certain portions. In other words, you are preparing the background information. Well, you may make a mistake at this point, and your background information may be incorrect, but that seems to be the approach. So once you do this, you then ask ChatGPT. Well, Langchain is exactly the library in Python that allows you to do it, and not only in Python. As you can see, here's in Python, here's JS, JavaScript on NPM, and so on. Okay, that's who they are. What are we talking about? How to use this chain. And let's go through that. That's technical, and that's what we usually do. We show practical application in addition to just chatting about chat. So the first thing that we do is we will investigate the chain mechanism in Langchain. And in fact, we will do a couple different ones. So of course, let us start. Now, I'm running it locally. I can show you the code. That is how you run it. I just ran through that. Maybe what I will do is clean it up. Restart and clean all output so that you will see that it's running now. Now, one way to run it is by clicking here, and I ran it and then got the number 1. And this one doesn't have a number, and that's why it is not run. Another way is to hit Shift and return. So when I do this, it's easier like this, but you will not see my mouse. But in any case, I import an additional library that stores my keys. Now, these are the keys that you shouldn't be giving out to people. In my class, I usually give you the temporary key, you run with it. I will try to be careful and not forget to delete it or disable. However, ChatGPT is quite careful about this, and you get an email, you lick the key right away. In any case, this one I didn't link because it is stored in .env file locally somewhere. Next is, let's say, where we'll be using ChatGPT 4 model, and we also need the data to play with. Now, what this data is a bunch of examples. I'm not going to learn with this. I just use it as a convenience. It's kind of a series of questions that I will refer to. So in order not to program these questions in the code, I will read them from the data CSV. Okay, so I have the data CSV here. So it read it, it was okay. And now I'm saying, just show me the very first few lines. It shows me the first few lines. It turns out to be, here's the product and a review for this product. Oh, nice. A queen size sheet set. And the review says I ordered a king size set, and my only criticism and so on. So we similarly have a few product reviews. But what we're going to do with it, that's another question. So now let's go more technical, and we go into the LLM chains. And by the way, that should be markdown, and then it will look like this. That's what it really should be. But I'm importing all the packages. Now I'm using Langchain, so that means I have installed it at a certain point. That should be there. And then I'm using 3 components of this Langchain. I'm using Chat OpenAI. That is their component to integrate talking to ChatGPT. You also use Chat Prompt Template. Obviously, it's a template, a way to categorize and store your templates. And the template in this case is a library, a collection of templates, how you talk to ChatGPT. Do you impersonate a doctor or a physicist or mathematician? That's what the templates are for. All right, so now we're setting and the LLM chain component itself. Now what we're doing here is we prepare a way to talk to LLM. It could be a different LLM, theoretically put instead of Chat OpenAI, Chat Anthropic. I would expect that to work. But these examples all are with ChatGPT. So what we set here is a temperature parameter. Temperature can be between 0 and 1. At 0, it's very cool, meaning that it is frozen, and you get the same answer every time. No unpredictability. Now I take it back right away. You never get the same answer from an LLM every time, but you can control it at least in a little way, and 0 will give you more or less the same answer every time. And 1 will give you as unpredictable an answer as it can get. Which model am I using? I just said GPT-4. So with that, I'm preparing. I do the import. That should work. And then I create a device, an object to talk. And here's my first prompt. What is the best name to describe a company that makes product? And then the product you should give it. So let's try how it works with the prompts. And for the product, I give queen size sheet set. Now we said 0.9, so it's unpredictable, and it says queen size bedding company. Not very unpredictable, but try it again. Let's do it. Here we are. That's our model. And now it says queen size bedding manufacturer. So it does change its mind a little bit. Now we will use first simple sequential chain, which does this. Takes the input, inputs it on the chain, and then from chain 1 to chain 2, then the output. So let's try that. Let me move that window. So I see that there is something in the chat, but I will try not to lose concentration and continue with that. Come somewhere to the middle and then look at the chat, all right? So now we're saying use this model and a new template. The new template translate the review to English. So we assume it was in another language. Then, and that's a chain, then summarize it after you translated it. And then what was the language? Tell me that. Okay, if we run this chain and write a follow-up response, then we should see how it works. Let us run this chain and do it for 5 reviews. That takes a little time, but it will do it. So first we see the review was in French, je trouve le goût médiocre. The taste is so-so. Find the taste mediocre. Try to be close to the original. Okay, and then we're running the subsequent actions. And you can imagine they can be any actions. It's interesting that summary was in French for some of that. Well, I'm not interested in the details of what we're doing, but much more in the general overview. What we're doing is a chain of events. We're talking to ChatGPT, getting the answer, applying some more transformations to that answer. Now I'm going to chat to see what the questions. Okay, can you California king size sheeted sheet? Okay, let me do this. So it was in the previous one right here. That would be my product. And we're interested in marketing to California. Let's run. California King Comfort Bedding. Not very creative, but it's still interesting. Okay, what were the previous comments? Let's look at them. There is a trust that all the companies are betting on. They're saying, oh, these guys, they don't know about security. We do. We're being hacked all the time. So, and how it worked out for Microsoft. Yes, that is an interesting thing, but you guys can read it. There's nothing I should answer. Well, that AI is pretty important. Uh, okay. All right. Thank you for the comments. Let's continue then. We were right here, I believe. So we see that you can ask to do a few things in a row, but what else? What else is that the one that I described before? First, you need to find out what is the question about. And the thing is that we'll come right here, and that's called the route chain. The thing is that you cannot rely on old methods because programmers automatically might say, okay, if there is a word which says physics, that's about physics. But we're better than this now that we have the smart LLM, and we can simply ask it, was that about physics? Because you can say the word mechanics and it won't be physics, right? And then you can say mechanics of dieting and it won't be about mechanics either. So for that, you have the router chain. First, you ask, what is the question about? You say, is it math? Is it history? Or in the end, you cannot list all of them. Is it anything else? Then you will pass. If it is anything else, you will pass it to another chain. That's why it's called the router. You will pass it to a universal chain and hope for the best. But if it is a math question, then you can say your template will be this. You are a very smart physics professor. That is telling to ChatGPT that imagine you're a very smart physics professor, that you are great at answering questions about physics in a concise and easy to understand manner. When you don't know the answer to a question, you admit that you don't know. That is the complete instruction to ChatGPT on how it should behave. And we know that the more you tell it, the better. If you want specific behavior, you should be specific about what you want. That's if you decide that the question is about physics. If it is about mathematics, let's see what they want differently. You're very good mathematicians. You're great at answering math questions. You're so good because you're able to break down the problems, and therefore we should expect each component explained separately. It's not the same as physics. Then there is a history. Then there is a computer science. And now you begin to understand how they structure it out. It all is based on the amazing thing that LLM does, because everything else is very simple compared to the real LLM, what that does. And that is important. Without that, you cannot go any further. But that's not rocket science. You're just saying you are a rocket scientist. And I see the comment, can you please ask a question to the model? Where it can say, I don't know what the right product name is. So Priya, for the first chain, because that was our first chain, the product name, there was no chance. We didn't leave it a chance to say, I don't know what the product name is. So no, it will not hesitate. It will say something. This is, by the way, called hallucination. That if it is getting some strange information, it will still act on it. But I will satisfy your curiosity in this one, because here we're saying, I don't know what the question is about. And if you don't know, then we go with the generic answer. So let's do this. Here is the question. Here is another question, and so on. Let's run. Let's go to the last place where we stopped, and we cannot skip any. Here is the template. Now, this is no action. It's just remember what I said. So, of course, it should work unless I make a mistake in the syntax. Now we do the multi-prompt chain and the router. As you remember, router means that you first ask what's the question about, and then you answer that in different ways. Then you connect to the model, and that is your destination chains. They can be a physics chain, a mathematics chain, history chain, and we are doing the prompt. And now we're doing the multi-prompt router template. That's the clever place where you make an actual router. You need to separate your inputs with different format signs, because you can tell it, I'm using 3 backslashes, or I'm using 3 quotes. That's how you separate different inputs. And finally, you create your routing template. With that, you can start. So run, what is black body radiation? For that, it should first, it's figuring it out. It should first understand that's about physics. And if so, it should then answer. Let's see. Now, as we see, it is some time. In some applications, it may be important. Many applications, people say, okay, it's me thinking, it's all right, I wanted to think. But robots, that's at least one application where that speed will not do. Because you would want the robot to react much faster than stop for like about a minute and then do something. And there are no guarantees in any case. That means that it can time out. Anything can happen, and if you're using ChatGPT, you probably saw examples of where things were so loaded, sorry, that we cannot process. That happens. Well, this is much longer than I had it when I was running before. So I don't know why is that. And I'm not sure if it would help. Well, enterprise, they have an enterprise version to which I applied, but I still didn't get it, so I don't have that. So I'm running on a regular schedule. What I can do is run it again, perhaps. So I will say interrupt kernel and then restart. At least I'm trying to restart from that line. I didn't want to clean it all up. Okay, that worked. So it was hesitating, but at least it gave me partial input that it realized it is about physics. Then it realized that that's what it should answer. Now, we are not deep into this, so what we will do is just look at the mechanics. Yes, it realized it's physics, and probably it answered as we would like physicists to answer. Let's look at the next one. So entering multi-prompt chain, it understood that it's a math question. And now it says that's the answer. We didn't illustrate how it is a mathematician who breaks down the problem into pieces. That probably can be done. But now comes the questions. And it says, why does every cell in our body contain DNA? That is more of a medical question or biology question, and so it shouldn't know. What does it do in that case? So it says none. I don't know that area, and I don't have any special way of handling that. But at least I will ask ChatGPT on your behalf. Let's see. It asked ChatGPT, which of course knew. Now, I will add to that is an interesting thing. I have another implementation that is for the Talmud. That happens to be my special area, and I have mosesai.org. So it's fed with 3,000 summaries of every page of the Talmud that I wrote. And when it doesn't know how to achieve world peace. When it doesn't know, it will not say I don't know. It will go to the areas outside of its context, which I provided. So we'll see if, according to the context provided, world peace is achieved this way. You can read it. But it will say that according to my general knowledge, I've seen it answer, and I cannot guarantee what it will say every time. So let us ask about, tell me about DNA. That it shouldn't know. Okay, so sorry, provided context doesn't give any information about DNA, but I have seen it giving an answer from the source that I didn't quite understand. That was my comment on this lab, that sometimes there is an unpredictability because you can do this, you can do a routing chain, or you can do something else. That's the fun part, I would say. Fun part. There are two fun parts. One is when it works, and another one is when it answers something you didn't expect. Both happen to me. All right. So I have a question and answer. Okay, and you want to send a special. Well, you have my email, and my email is the first thing there. So I'm not answering anything here, but I'm only saying that here it's our webinar, and the very top of it says that's my email, and you can send anything that's more than what we can accommodate here in the discussion in a separate place. All right, guys. So we're almost at the end. I want to stop sharing. And that usually allows you guys to talk and speak up. And here we are. And anything that you want to be discussed next time, I'm just like LLM. I don't promise that I'll do it, but I'll try. Okay. If not, then I wish you all the best.
I actually, can you hear me?
Yes, very well, friend.
I'm new to the context of these interesting discussions, and certainly they're very informative. But I was wondering, could I send you some ideas that we can discuss, like in a think tank capacity, on some practical applications and just brainstorm on them occasionally?
I love to, because that's exactly what happens.
Well,
It all started with I am doing this Caseify that I showed. Then another guy, he said, Mark, I have another idea. Let's talk. In other words, let's talk. So it
so
depends.
I think it's a bit lengthy, the description, and it's probably best if I send you a PowerPoint deck. I sent you a message,
PowerPoint deck
and
is good.
yeah, so and then we can discuss it before we bring it to the fore. And so I sent you my email address. I think it's probably better if I email this to you rather
Yeah,
than it's the most
email.
expedient way, I think, to
No,
describe it.
right. And maybe I'm giving you,
You could just send me an email oh, all right,
yeah,
perfect. All right, great.
that's an email.
How do I copy out of the chat window? It doesn't let me copy though.
No, well,
Uh,
at least it's very simple. You can type it. That's
yeah,
your
yeah,
sim.
it's Mark. Okay, got it.
For
But I was
me,
thinking more in general.
it does allow me to copy. I don't know. Copy. You see the three
Well,
dots?
I don't get three dots next to
Oh,
my, that's the thing.
oh, okay. Okay, then I gave you a simple email. It works.
Yeah,
You
that's
can
that's
type it.
a simple for now, but I was thinking of a more general. But okay, maybe there's some other thing.
I
Maybe you
don't know what.
subscribe.
That's a question to
for
Zoom,
ChatGPT.
Zoom. No, and for ChatGPT as well. Yes, I agree.
By the way, this 2021 window is ridiculous. Do you know if they're ever going to improve upon that, make it more current?
That is interesting. First of all, what do the competitors do?
I don't know.
Secondly, they are working on this. For example, they allow you to tell it, go and search for the current answer on the web today. So it seems like the 2021 is a big limitation, and they would have to retrain. They, I think, cannot just additionally train.
I agree, but I think the training has to be ongoing. That's my point, right? It can't be done in spurts, right? I mean, it is training because people are giving it correction, right? But to
But you have to
integrate,
get access to the data. So depends on where they got their data from. 4 goes
Well,
out. 4 you can pay for, then you get a little flexibility. 3.5 is stuck. I think 4 gives you more.
I have 4, and I still run into that issue. That
when
message
Google,
comes up.
Go ahead. Sorry. I was going to say
when,
Bing, but no.
yes, no. When Google started, they also did only once every 30 days, and now it's instant. So it will come to this. But as you can see, it's not even as easy as crawling the whole web.
Honestly, I've only
It's
used.
investing $10 billion to train the model. So
Yeah.
seems like you have to invest another 10 billion.
Right. Well, but I think the 10 billion wasn't overall. I think the updates
Yes,
probably be
I
less.
agree. Well, that's the question. How
Oh,
can you add updates? It seems like that's not an easy thing.
yeah, I would agree. It becomes a big hairball of information that has to be redone, and that can be ugly. Honestly, I've only used ChatGPT. Are there the other models? What are they? I haven't even tried them. Well, could you tell me what they're? Somebody said Bing.
Anthropic and Claude, but we'll talk about this next time.
Okay, yeah, all right, great.
We'll have to
Yeah.
wait for a week, and that's the imperfection of the world that is left to us, so that we have something to do. Otherwise, it would be too easy.
And who makes Claude and who makes Anthropic? Is it
Is
what?
a company called Anthropic, and the
But
model
doesn't Google have one and Microsoft have one?
they also have Microsoft is essential ChatGPT. Google has their own. It's called Bard.
Bard,
Let
that's what
me
I was looking for. Any
Bard.
experience on Bard compared to ChatGPT?
Bard
Not yet.
works. Yeah, I work with Bard. Bard is
Cool.
pretty accurate. I was looking up different types of last night.
Oh, good.
Mhm.
So
Thanks for
sell
that.
it. Yeah, and it was pretty accurate to give you the understanding that coconuts are from Western Thailand, but they actually don't live in Thailand. They migrate. Yeah, coconuts.
Are you suggesting that coconuts migrate?
Sure they do. See, that's a joke we had yesterday too.
Oh, really? All right, so
Yeah,
Bard is the other one. There's not a third one?
Bard, BARD,
Yeah, Bard. Yeah, is there a third one as well? I mean,
Bard,
that,
Claude, and Chat
and,
GPT.
okay. All right, great. Thank you very much. I appreciate the enlightenment.
Sorry, so that we have to say goodbye now,
Okay,
but
all right.
we'll
Thank you.
say hello again.
Thank you very much.
Great work.
Right.
Thank you. Bye.
Dear well, thank you. Goodbye.
See you next week, Mark.
Thank you very much.
Hey, thank